Welcome to the video for Retail Pro version 9 touch menus. This video will cover how you can set up the Retail Pro version 9 touch menus to be used with your version 9 as far as setting up your menus and your drill downs for those items that are very difficult to tag. This video will show as an example a fly fishing store because they have thousands and thousands of flies that are very, very difficult to tag. So the first thing that you need to think about when you're going to use the touch menus is your game plan. How do you want to set it up? First and foremost, have all of your items that are going to go onto the touch menu already entered into the inventory. It will make your job immensely easier and smoother. But most importantly is come up with a game plan, how you want the menus set up. Now, the menus are going to be set up in a similar manner to what you see here. You will have 8 main menu buttons along the top that, depending on which button you click on, will pop up a menu of 20 items that are related to that main menu. Now you'll see here I have my first button is trout flies, and I have a fly assigned to it, and then I'll continue to do the same thing with the rest of these. Because I carry more than 20 different trout flies though, I'm going to reserve this bottom corner button to take me down to another screen with more flies. The important thing to remember is you don't want to have to drill down any deeper than 3 menus. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. Otherwise, if you go deeper than 3 menus, it kind of defeats the purpose of setting this up as a quicker way of putting the items on the receipt than putting a barcode on them and scanning them. So what I do recommend as you're coming up with a plan, either draw it out on paper, draw it out on the computer, but come up with a game plan. So excuse my lack of artistic skills, but you'll notice I have my 8 buttons along the top, and then I have my 20 buttons down here. Now I've already set up my first button to be the trout flies. I'm also going to do saltwater flies. I'm also going to do steelhead. Now paint is not necessarily the only way that you could do this, but it was the program that I had available. So that's what I'm going to use. So I come up with what I want my main headers to be. Now I could make all 8 of these different varieties of flies if that's all I wanted to use my touch menus for. But I can also set up a button for fly tying or fly fishing lines or reels or anything that I want to set these 8 buttons up for. Okay, so first and foremost, come up with a plan of how you want this touchscreen to be set up. Now, Big Hairy Dog will help you install the program, but the configuring of the menus is going to be up to you because you know what your needs are. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our configuration menu. I'm going to close this real quick. One of the first things that you will need to do when you are installed is set up your configuration. So first and foremost, you're going to choose what subsidiary you want to pull this information from, what database you want to pull it from. You may want to set up what store number you're using. Now, if you're a single store, it's not that big of a deal to whether this is checked or unchecked, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it checked. Okay. Now, secondly, do you want to use the top menu? I recommend that you do use the top menu because it gives you a way of grouping things together, but you can choose not to use the top menu. And to show you what that would look like, it would look very much like this. Okay? So I'm going to go back to using the top menu. Now, you need to check whether or not you use VAT or value added tax. Generally speaking, here in the United States, we do not generally use value-added tax, but if you are using that in your point-of-sale system, I would recommend that you do turn this on. Now, next, you can choose what font style you want these buttons to show up on. I use the Clinic Slam Medium. That's just the font that we use here at Big Hairy Dog, but you can set it to any font that is listed here in this list. Understand that this list that you get does come from your Windows font. So if there is a font that you really like that is not in that list, what I recommend is that you Google that font style and download it to your computer, and then it will become available in this list. Secondly, do you want to show the price on the button? So when you're looking at this button right here, do you want it to show the price of the item? That's entirely up to you, okay? I have mine showing the price. You can also have it show the price with tax. Now, do you want it to prompt for the price if something comes up with a zero price? If you do, check this box. If you don't, leave it unchecked. Now this related items down here, this comes into play if when you click on a particular menu button, you want it to take you to a related item. So say you're entering in your flies, you want it to take you into your fly line. If you click on that button, then you would want to set up a field in Retail Pro. Typically we use one of the auxiliary fields. Generally speaking, one of the last few, so we don't have to worry about it running into something you may need later on. And you need to set up what marking is going to let you know that this is a related item. I simply put an R on those items, and so that way I can attach them as a related menu to what I choose when I click on that particular one menu button. Now, once you have your game plan in place, you're going to come in here to configure. And first thing that you need to do is you need to build all of your menus, especially the menus for the top. So I'm going to have trout flies here. I'm going to add a menu of steelhead. Okay, click OK. I'm going to add another menu of saltwater. I'm going to add a menu for fly tying. Okay, and maybe fly fishing lines. Okay, now for each one of these buttons that comes up here, you do need to have a menu, but you also need to have a menu for each of the screens down here. So when I first click on the Trout Lines button, it's going to bring up my first screen of trout flies. I want to create a menu that is more trout flies 2 and more trout flies 3. That's going to give me 3 menus of 19 buttons apiece for me to put my trout flies on. I would repeat the process for my steelhead flies, my saltwater flies, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and add in all of those menus. I hate when you accidentally hit the caps lock key. Saltwater flies 2 and one more. Now know that no one other than the person configuring the touch menu screen is going to see these menus. These are strictly for you to let the computer know which menu you want it to bring up. Okay? Now, once you have all of your menus built, now it's time to start building your buttons. So I have the trout flies set up. I give it the label that I want, and I tell it what menu I want it to activate. And you'll see all of my menus are in there. Now, I can add a picture to the screen up above. The one thing that I caution you with using a picture, and you'll see this in just a moment, is that when you put a picture of the item, it does overwrite or cover up the writing of what that particular item, what the label is. So if I put a picture here, I wouldn't be able to see the words trout flies. So instead, I choose to use a background color. Now you can choose any one of these from the basic palette, or if you want to create your own color, you can start off with one and go to the Define Custom Colors and fine-tune it to what you want it to be. Add it to your custom colors, and then click OK. Now I am done with this, and you will see that my Trout Flies button is going to become a lighter shade of blue, okay, because of the change I just made. Now, once I assign each one of these, I'll do this one for the Steelhead Flies. I want this one to activate the Steelhead Flies menu. I'm going to put a different color background on this one. Let's start off with a green. Yeah, maybe a little more green. There we go. Lighten it up a little bit. I find that the lighter the shade, the easier it is to read the wording on the actual button. So click that. And you would continue this process with all 8 of these. Okay, I wanted to activate the saltwater flies. And again, I'm going to put a background on here. Let's go with a yellow, maybe a little lighter than that. Okay, so you would utilize all 8 of these buttons. You are limited to 8, so you need to make the most of those. Now, once I've told these top menus what menus to activate, so on the side menu to build these buttons down here, I'm going to highlight the menu over here on the side. And you'll notice I have one button up here that does have a picture. As you can tell, I don't know what, other than the picture, I don't know what this fly is called. Now, when I click on that button, I can see what the label is, but I can't tell with the picture. So I am going to take the picture out, but I wanted you to see what it looked like if you left the picture on there. Now, for each button, you're going to click on the button. And what I recommend is that you use the select button. Unless you want to take the time to write down in your plan each item number that you want, so maybe number, 113, this is 1717. Unless you want to write down the item number specifically that you want there, I would recommend that you use the select button. It allows you to filter down for what you're looking for. Now you can filter for any of these 3 up here. I'm going to go ahead, or you can type in an item number or UPC. But if you're going to use the filter, I'm going to go ahead and put in TR. So that is my DCS for my trout flies. I click by DCS, and now I'm looking at every single trout fly that I have. So I'm now going to put this tongue prints on there. Click OK. You'll notice that it does type in the product number and the description, but you need to label it the way you want to see. You want the staff members to see it so they know how to pick it. So I'm going to put in there tongue prints, and I'm going to set a background color. Now, I do typically try to keep the colors the same. So if my background color up here on trout flies is blue, I typically am going to make all of the screens blue. So even if all I see is the color, if I see yellow, I know I'm in the wrong screen. It doesn't match the blue of my trout flies. So let's see if I can get close to what I had there before. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you would repeat this process for all 19. Now, when you get down to this last one in the corner, the way that we work this is I click on this button, and I'm not going to use an item number. I'm just going to put in a label here of more trout flies. So I know what that's going to do. And when I click on that button, it's going to activate a menu of my trout flies too. And again, I'm going to go in and give it the color that I want. Now, usually for this button, I do like to make that stand out. So I usually make that red so it stands out against everything else that you've seen there. Okay, change the quantity to 0, click done. So now I'm going to go ahead and close this because I want to take a look at it and see what it's going to look like at the point of sale. Let me go ahead and give this some background color. And again, you don't have to go to all the trouble of making these colors if you don't want to, but it is an option. Okay. Now, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to look at the Simulate button. So Simulate, this is the way that it would look at the point of sale. Okay. And again, if I close this, and I go into Retail Pro, and into my receipts, and into a new one, when I click on this touch menu button over here, well, I have to set my default menu up there. You'll see this is what it will look like. Okay, I'll go ahead and close that. Go back to my touch menu configuration. Okay, now it is important that you choose which menu you want this to start on. When you click on the touch menu button in Retail Pro, what menu do you want it to start off on? I typically have it start on the first screen, first menu for my first button. And I designate that by putting that check mark there. That's how it knows what is your first menu that you want to set up. Okay, so I would finish setting up all of my trout flies, and then I would come down to my more trout flies too. I set up those 19 buttons, and again, get down here to the bottom, and I would put in my more trout flies. And I'm going to have this activate menu 3. We'll give it a quantity of 0 and a background color that's red. So it knows that this is going to bring in more trout flies and take me to yet another menu. Okay, so that's why the game plan is so important, because it's going to keep you on track of what your original intention was. Now, that's not to say that you can't change up your mind as you go, and as you stop carrying products and pick up new products, you can always come into this configuration and change things out. So if I go here to the Steelheads menu, you'll notice that nothing has been used yet. I'm going to go ahead and set up my Steelheads. Okay, so I'm going to filter for my flies. Okay, by DCS. Here's all of my Steelhead flies. And again, I'm going to try to keep it in the same color background just so it's, a little easier to keep track of. And I'm going to move that on up, add it, okay, and then done. Oh, need a label on there. So we're going to do laid back black. Okay, click done. Now I have that on my screen. So that is, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And then when I am done working on this, I can click on the exit button, save my changes. Never a bad idea to periodically save your changes as you go. Okay, but that is how you would set up the touch menus for version 9 touch menus. Again, come up with a game plan and then go in and set up the top menu items, and then assign the items that are going to belong to each of those menus. If you have any further questions, or you would like some help setting this up and coming up with a game plan, please don't hesitate to contact Big Hairy Dog at 1-800-377-7777. and we will be more than happy to schedule you a time with a trainer to work out the details for your specific needs. Thank you so much and have a great day.